What is up, everybody? Welcome back to RaceNews.com. Welcome back to another one of our Kentucky Derby updates. All right, it's just getting more and more exciting by the week. We had a really good race last week, the Tampa Bay Derby. We'll talk about that first. We will go over Jon and my top fives for another week, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's coming up next week, the Virginia Derby, or I should say this week, the Virginia Derby. All right, let's get to it. I'll put it up on the screen now as we've got the Tampa Bay Derby here, and it was a field of 7, and we expected, well, at least I expected Owen Almighty to win the race, and it's nice when you expect something and it actually happens, always good. But he got the job done by a wide margin there. He just kind of dominated this one really from start to finish, got out to the front, took control really at the top of the stretch / top of the lane, and just dominated and held them all off. So let's talk about Owen Almighty first, because the owners of Owen Almighty have a very difficult decision on their hands. There's no question about that. Trainer certainly said, hey, the Pat Day Mile, that's kind of where we're going. He said it even before the race. He said, we're using this race to kind of springboard ourselves to the Pat Day Mile. And look, I mean, we can sit here in our chairs all day as handicappers or looking at pedigrees or even listening to the trainer and say, well, yeah, I mean, that is the logical thing to do. That's what they need to do. Don't take this horse to the Kentucky Derby. Nothing says the horse is going to stretch out to 1.25 miles. I'm even on record several times over the last couple of weeks, and really the weeks leading up to when this horse was running, of saying 1.16 miles, I think, is his tip top distance. I said pretty much, I think, yes, 1.16 miles, he can certainly get it. I wouldn't take him any further. And I think the trainer, based on the comment, agrees. However, it's got to be really tough as an owner sitting here on March 9th as I record this and saying, or looking at the leaderboard of the points, saying, I don't even have to run again. And my horse is in the Kentucky Derby, the freaking Kentucky Derby. My horse is in. You don't have to start again. He's in. He's got the points, but we're going to pass and run in the Pat Day. That is a very, very hard decision to make. Even though I think everybody involved, probably the owners as well, probably know that the Pat Day Mile, or at least their best guess. We never really know in horse racing, but our best guess is, yeah, that's probably the best race for him. But boy, it has got to be hard to turn down the Derby. So I don't know what's going to happen with Owen Almighty. I don't know where he'll run next. I can tell you this is a nice horse. Like I don't know that he's a Derby horse. He's probably not, but he's an awfully nice horse. And whatever they do, I can't blame them one way or another. So I'll just leave it at that. I wouldn't want to make that decision. I know that. All right, let's go to Chancellor McPatrick and Hill Road, the 2-3 finishers of this race. Pretty predictable races, I thought, for both of them. If we know anything about Chad Brown and his Kentucky Derby hopefuls, that first race out as a 3-year-old, if I could speak correctly, it never is really that great. Even Sierra Leone won his first out as a 3-year-old last year, but he definitely, his next race and next and onward were much better than that one. He won that first one on class, and he's a hell of a horse. As we learned, he was the 3-year-old of the year, so he was able to do it. But you think back to some of his other ones, you really don't see him pop with that big race until that second prep, and specifically in the Bluegrass. So I think Chancellor McPatrick and Hill Road, they got a nice race under their belt. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying I'm head over heels for either one of these horses, but I'm saying don't completely write them off. Let's see where they enter. One's going to go to the Wood. One's going to go to the Bluegrass. At least that's the plan right now. Let's see where they enter. Let's see how they look compared to those horses. And just keep in mind, and again, I'm not saying I'm picking either one of them to win, but just keep in mind, they're going to run better next out. It is almost a guarantee. They're going to run better next time out. His best horse historically, year after year, his best Derby contender, I should say, usually goes to the Bluegrass. So I think whichever one goes to the Bluegrass, that's the one he thinks highly of for the Derby. Yeah, not saying the horse that runs in the Wood isn't any good. I mean, think about early voting, who was in the Wood and lost to Mo Donegal and then went on to win the Preakness. So I'm not saying throw out the whoever goes to the Wood. I'm just saying that Bluegrass horse, that's usually his target. That's where he sends his best one. And it'll probably be the case this year as well. So Chancellor McPatrick, Hill Road, they weren't great in this race. They will improve next out. Now, is that improvement good enough to win? Again, we'll just have to see the fields, because I'm still not like overly excited about either one of them. I'm sitting here telling you, I know, I know these horses will run better next out. Then finally, the fourth place finisher, Patch Adams. I think you could toss him as far as a Derby hopeful goes. I don't really know what you do with him at this point. I was critical, and again, I was careful because I didn't want to blame like Flavian Pratt for what happened, or what happened in the Southwest, because maybe the horse just didn't want to do it. And I think what we saw in the Tampa Bay Derby is it's the horse, not the rider. And what I mean is he was way too far back in the Southwest compared to all his races and compared to certainly where he projected. And I was kind of saying, I don't know. I wasn't sitting on his back, but was it Pratt didn't ask him, or was he trying to get him up there and the horse wouldn't do it? Well, in the Tampa Bay Derby, Ferrant Giroux, so new jock, gets him in the position where I thought he would need to be, or maybe not even need to be, but where I think he would do his best. So he's kind of stalking the pace. He's wide, but he's stalking, and I thought, well, that's okay. That horse just backed right out of that spot, though. And so I don't know, mental issues, or he's not that good, or both. And I'm going to go with both until he proves me otherwise. So, yeah, total toss for me. Really, all three of these horses, obviously, Owen Almighty, we don't even know what he's going to do next. And then Chancer and Hill Road, as far as next out, we'll just have to see what they go up against. That, 92 buyer for this race. It wasn't amazing. But listen, Owen Almighty, I think he's pretty darn good, and I think he's going to continue to get better. So, but as far as the Derby goes, I'm not sure if that's what they need or / want to do with him. All right, let's now go to the top fives here. I'm just going to go through both of ours real quick, and then I'll get to John's comments, and I'll have a little bit of commentary as well. There's not a ton to really talk about this week because these lists are the same. That's why I'm just going to rattle through them. Cole Battle, number 5. I mean, he's kind of earned it with the wins. I'm not sitting here thinking he's, the Derby winner at this point, but he's just keeps winning and winning. Should get better as they go longer as well. Number 4 is Barnes for me. Number 3, Sovereignty. Number 2, Citizen Bull. And number 1 this week for me is Journalism. Let's go to John's because we're very similar. Cole Battle at number 5 for him. Citizen Bull at number 4. Barnes at number 3. Sovereignty at number 2. And Journalism at number 1. Before I read John's comment, I want to do a quick plug for Ryan Stillman. He sat down with another Ryan, pedigree expert that breeds horses in Indiana. He is very, very well immersed in the pedigree game. And he sat down and he broke down the pedigrees for Journalism, Sovereignty, and Barnes, 3 of the 5 horses that are on our lists, both John and I. And he sat down and all they did was specifically, here are the facts about the pedigrees of these 3 horses as far as getting 1.25 miles. So, the Kentucky Derby analysis only. Can these horses, based on their pedigree alone, get the distance? Now, Ryan is quick to point out right off the bat, this is one tool in your handicapping. Horses can outrun the pedigree. It's not that often they do, but they can. So make sure to keep that in mind. It's just one tool, and we'll see what happens. But that's a very informative, all facts driven. There's not a lot of opinions in there. He just spits out facts. It's really good. All right. Now let's get to John's comments this week. He said, I thought that Owen Almighty did look good winning the Tampa Bay Derby by a clear-cut margin. And like I said, a 92 buyer. The 92 buyer was his best figure yet. But Owen Almighty does not crack my top 5 this week, especially since his connections indicated right after the Tampa Bay Derby that they might opt for the Pat Day Mile instead of the Kentucky Derby. Number 1 again for him this week is Journalism. In fact, he's made no changes to the top 5. John goes on to mention, I previously said that Journalism's 108 buyer speed figure in the San Felipe victory was second only to the 109 by the currently sidelined Magnitude among 3-year-old males. But Magnitude's original 109 actually was downgraded to a 108, which means no 3-year-old male has recorded a buyer higher than Journalism's 108 this year. So that's John's quotes there for this week for you guys. And as always, appreciate him sending those in. It's always nice to get a top 5, but to get a little bit of commentary from John is good as well. As I guess this is the only place you get that. I just realized as I was saying, I was like, John's retired. So anyway, I'll piggyback on what John said. I don't have a whole lot to add to that. Again, the pedigree analysis is up on the website now for Barnes Journalism Sovereignty. Go check that out. Look, I think we're all in a holding pattern now to those last 2 weekends. Arkansas Derby, Santa Ana Derby, Bluegrass, Wood, Florida Derby. Those are going to be the big ones, and of course Louisiana coming up in a couple weeks. That'll be a big one as well. So we're in a holding pattern again. We'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting to kind of see this thing progress down the road here as we get to the Kentucky Derby, and we are now into the second week in March. So we are getting very close to this thing actually happening. So that's the list for this week. Like I said, just kind of stay tuned. We're keeping our ear to the ground, and we'll keep you updated as things need to change. All right, let's quickly now go to the Virginia Derby. That's coming up this week, and it's a field of 10 right now. Now, I do want to mention the number 2 Hancock. I am pretty sure this horse is going to scratch. It has not been, stated. It's not in writing, but it's odd to me that Mike Smith gets the mount on John Hancock while Flavian Pratt rides Rapture. That was pretty surprising to see. Also, I just feel like with Cox, he's kind of been saying John Hancock to the Louisiana Derby was kind of going to be the route for him. So I kind of sort of think John Hancock's going to scratch. If he does, that just makes his field crazy, crazy wide open. If he does run, I think he's the horse to beat. Obviously, he beat Owen Almighty, who came back to win the Tampa Bay Derby in impressive fashion. But again, reading between the lines, I think that horse is going to scratch. Like I said, he was kind of on Steve Bick before the draw. He was on Steve Bick kind of speculating that the Louisiana Derby would be the spot. But if he runs and he gets Mike Smith, which is different, I was very surprised to see Mike Smith named. He's rode exactly one horse for Brad Cox in the last year. So we'll see. Again, I don't know how realistic that is, but we'll have a full preview of the Virginia Derby coming up on the website as well. So make sure to check that out after you check this video out. All right, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. Hit the like button if you like the video. Hit subscribe. You really like it. Want to get alert anytime we do videos like this. And hey, most importantly, come back next week for another Kentucky Derby update.